Hi, this is Sarah. You're listening to My Alien Art Life, and if you would, before we get started, go ahead, subscribe, and like the video. So today we're going to be talking about a missing 411 case concerning Keith Parkins. Keith Parkins was a 2.5-year-old boy. He was missing for 19 hours, and this is during April of 1952. It was around Easter time. Edna was visiting her parents with her husband Alan and her 3 sons, and this was at her parents' ranch in Ritter, Oregon. The snow was still on the ground at that time of year. It did get below freezing at night. Just a background on Alan, the dad. He did work at a Washington State Penitentiary as a guard. I don't know if that's relevant for the story, but that's just something to, take note of. The location was at a cattle ranch. It did run along a river, and it was near Constant Road in Ritter. The story goes, Edna is making lunch for her 3 kids and probably her parents. It's noon. The 3 boys went to look at a barnyard cat that was new to the area, so, kids just going on looking at cats. They wandered around the barn, and their mom called them in for lunch. Keith's 2 brothers went back, and they said that Keith had went the long way around the barn. So mom goes out to find him. She doesn't find him. She looks everywhere. He's not there. Immediately, they get a search party together of up to 200 people that evening, and they look throughout the night. I think it's really amazing that they were able to immediately start looking for this 2.5-year-old boy. It's important to note that the area that they're in is very mountainous. It's cattleland, but it's also has very rugged, bouldery, jagged type of mountainous areas. I did look on Google Maps, and today there are roads going throughout the area. I don't know what it was like, obviously, in 1952, but there are dirt roads connecting the different areas between the ranch and the river. So again, I don't know what it was like in 1952. It's kind of an unknown in my brain. So as they're looking 3 miles northeast, they find in like a kind of a round cattle pasture footprints, and it's Keith's footprints. In the morning at 7 a.m., they find Keith west another 5 miles. So it's almost like a triangular area that there's a little bit of clues. There's the barn at the bottom. There is northeast where the footprints are found. And then northwest where his body's found. So it's almost like an upside down triangle if you want to kind of create that visual in your mind. Now, if those footprints are indeed Keith's, and they were accurately, identified, then that would mean that Keith had traveled more than 9 miles in between all those locations. Even if, let's say that he traveled just west, and let's say the footprints weren't even a part of the equation, he would still have to have traveled 3 to 5 miles as a 2-year-old over very rough terrain. With all these people trying to look for him and not finding him, because you would assume that if he had come across a dirt road or something like that, he would stay there. He wouldn't meander off into the woods. I don't quite understand. Maybe if you're in a cattle field, however, everything kind of looks, like a hill. Okay, so he was found by one of the volunteers. His dad was 100, 200 yards away at the time. He had his hat and his jacket in his hand, face down in the snow, over a frozen, it was a frozen pond area or frozen water area. And this was in Skull Canyon. Don't call your canyon Skull Canyon. That's creepy. That's weird. Okay. He was flown to Pendleton Hospital in a private plane and suffered a little bit of frostbite, but he survived. Yay! Now, he actually appeared on the Missing 411 documentary, which I'll link down below if you guys are interested in seeing it. I think I saw it on Vudu or Hulu. Anywho, he had tears in his overalls, where his knee area was. He showed them on the video, and in the back of his overalls. I think it was interesting that he had his hat and his jacket in his hand, just because he obviously wouldn't have taken them off. He probably would have dropped them if he was walking by himself all that way. He did have scratches on his hands and his feet, which suggests that he had been through some brush. That's what I would assume. He didn't remember anything, obviously, because he's 2.5, you know. I do find it a little peculiar that, first of all, he survived, which means he wasn't there for very long. Because it was below freezing temperatures, he would have died quite quickly if he wasn't recently left there. Now, I have a hypothesis that maybe, not a hypothesis, Jesus, what am I, a scientist? I have an idea that maybe someone was walking along the barn and grabbed him, and because the search party started so quickly, and that's probably unexpected, maybe they were part of the search party, and so they probably had some sort of vehicle close by. They pretended to be part of this 200-person search party, and when they found a good opportunity, maybe left him in that area. The footprints are interesting because in the video, Keith actually shows his jacket and his overalls and his shoes, but when he shows his shoes, I do notice that like the bottom of his shoes, it's not like today where a kid has tennis shoes with tread marks. Like, his shoes were pretty flat on the bottom. So when they say they found his tracks in this cattle area 3 miles northeast, I do think it's important to take note that it's not like a footprint with tread marks that we would see today. It's just footprint, and that footprint would just be flat. So I'm not saying they didn't find the footprints. I'm just saying it could be a little misleading for them. Maybe they misidentified those footprints, and it wasn't a triangle-like search. Also, or not search, but a triangle-like space of evidence. Now, the clothing and the barbed wire that they found, you know, I think it's pretty easy for, like, if an animal, this is my second idea. So I don't know what kind of animals are in the area, maybe bears or wolves or coyotes. It's a 2-year-old. I mean, this kid is like pretty defenseless. It doesn't really make sense that he would be holding his hat and his jacket from this theory, but I'm gonna skip over that for a second. If an animal grabbed the kid, and that's why he had all these tears and was literally dragging him by his clothing, his face and hands would have been scratched up because the animal literally didn't hurt him but was taking him away, and that would make sense why his clothes would be messed up, why his face and hands would be scratched up, and it would also make sense why his footprints was in a different area and then all of a sudden another 5 miles away, because he can't go that far on foot. But you know what, an animal can. The hat and the jacket in the hands doesn't really make sense either for that idea, but I could see a piece of clothing getting caught in the wind and getting caught in barbed wire, or an animal pulling Keith through barbed wire, and maybe the piece of clothing ended up on the barbed wire that way. I think that it makes a lot of sense if you mix together the idea of a kidnapping and an animal attempted attack, but they kind of have aspects of both. The fact that things were torn, his face was all scratched up, indicates more of animal dragging behavior, especially with the footprints being in the middle of a cattle field. But then when you think about his his jacket and hat being in his hands, that's almost like someone saying, oh, here's your jacket and your hat, and then kind of leaving him face down, or leaving him in general, and then, you know, if the boy collapsed, then maybe he would have just fallen face down. Perhaps he was unconscious the whole time. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking with this story. I want to hear what you guys think. I know that David Paulides has some amazing research and cases out there. I did want to see what kind of research he has in these other stories and cases. Some of them I know are a lot more mysterious than this one. Tell me your theory on what happened at Skull Canyon, where Keith Parkins was found. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. I think my next story that I'm going to cover is a really common one. It's the Pavlos Pass incident. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I'll figure out how to pronounce it the next time I record something. All right, have fun. Bye.